Hello, 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 Facebook family and friends. How's everyone doing? Happy Monday. Happy Monday to everyone. This is Wisdom Walk number 79. I know it's been a while since I've done a Wisdom Walk, but I've had some personal situations happen in the last, last 72 hours, actually. Yeah, last 72 hours. And it kind of compelled me to do a Wisdom Walk because you guys know that I don't really have a scripted situation. I don't plan these things. I just speak from the heart. I do this for our Envy social group as part of our mindset training. It's something I just want to give back to the community. It's something I just want to give back to people. It's interesting. It's so interesting how life changes and how you learn so much as you go around. And I feel completely blessed that 58 years on this planet has taught me so much. But the major knowledge really didn't come to me after, I would say probably after my 50th birthday. I just wish I was able to find someone or find a mentor or someone that taught me these things in my 20s, in my 30s, because it will absolutely change. It would have changed the trajectory of my life. But the fact that I was able to pick up on it a few years ago has changed my trajectory of life. The only negative to that is I don't have that many more years as I would if I had learned this in my 20s or in my 30s. So I'm hoping that some of you are in your younger years, or you have children or siblings or people you care about, family, that you can share this with, and maybe they can learn prior to them being old as me. Okay, so actually it was interesting. I just said the word family, and that's kind of part of what I want to talk about today, because a lot of people believe family is based on blood, and you're from the same bloodline. And yes, we all want to say that, we all want to think that, but the reality of the situation is I have people closer to me that I adore and treats me totally different from those so-called family members that are blood. And there's no bloodline running between those people and myself. So it's interesting how we put so much emphasis on the bloodline. And again, it has nothing to do with the bloodline. It has to do with how people are. But as I mentioned, this can last generations. And I'm going to get a little personal today, more personal than I've ever had before. I have my sunglasses on too, because I'm sure I'll tear up in some of these situations. So I'm going to hide that a little bit. But today will be about as real as it's going to get. And I want everyone to understand that your actions, or the actions of your parents, or the actions of people around you, actually last generations. And as I go deep into that, go into my personal story, some of you may know, may not know, but my mom left when I was a baby. I was the baby of 7, and my dad took care of us all. In fact, I grew up thinking the housekeeper was my mom because I knew nothing different. I knew nothing else. That's all I knew. And I think one of the biggest tragedies of a human's life is to feel that you are not wanted or you're abandoned by a parent, because it runs pretty deep and it affects you for the rest of your life. And it'll affect your relationships. It will affect your relationship with your children, which you'll pass that on to them, and they'll pass it on to their children, and it goes generation to generation. So it's so important for you to understand, and I wish there was a way that we can teach this to people in the womb or when they're just born, because it's almost an impossible situation, because by the time you figure this out, it could be too late For those of you that's from a great family, a mom and dad still together, or even a single family where mom or dad is, doing what they need to do, teaching you the right things, I applaud you. But it's not easy. It's very, very difficult because we go through this process of all the pain and the hurt that you get from family members. And again, it starts with a unit of the mom and dad, because that's the catalyst. That's the thing that makes it all. And how that mom and dad conducts themselves and how they go about teaching their offspring, I want to call it offspring, or their children, is what really matters. Because those lessons are taught and they move on from generation to generation to generation. And for those of you that's been following me for a while, you'll know that the world is a very interesting place, because the things that we're taught in school and the things that we're taught in our society or our peers is not necessarily the way we live our life, or we put ourselves in a position to have success. And success is not only money. Success is you having a successful life, you having successful relationships with blood or not with blood, because that matters. The quality of your life matters. I teach how to put yourself in a position to live your life on your own terms financially, but you also have to understand the importance of living your life in a situation where you're comfortable, where you're happy. And again, if you watch my wisdom walks, no one can make you happy. Only you can make yourself happy. I can make someone feel good. I can make you feel special, but I can't make you happy. So as you go through those situations in life, it's so interesting how what we're taught by our parents or what we see our parents do changes everything. And yes, I'm officially damaged. And again, I'm saying I'm damaged not to say that I'm not functional, because I've taken my hurt. I lost you for a second. Anyway, unfortunately, it took me decades to get to the point of turning all that pain and that knowledge I've learned into something positive, because it was pretty destructive. I think the first time I saw my mom, recollection tells me I was about 7 or 8, and I ran from her because I didn't know who she was, because I thought, again, the housekeeper was my mom. And I think the next time I saw her was, I think I was around 11 or 12 before I came to the United States. And she actually attended my first birthday party, and I was 40 years old. Your mom attends your first birthday party. So there's a lot of dysfunction that parents pass on to children and pass on to generation. And I almost wish, and this is going to sound kind of funny, but I almost wish there was a parenting class that taught you before you had children. But unfortunately, we don't have anything like that. But it's the same situation. We don't have a class that teaches you finances, or teaches you not to rack up all those credit cards, or teaches you how to live your life on your own terms. So there's none of that available. So then there are people like myself and others that try to change the world by giving information, and you do what you choose with that information. So as I think about where my life has been and what's happened in the last few 24, 48, 72 hours or whatever, I'll kind of get a little bit personal now. I have, again, there are 7 siblings. 2 of them are no longer with us. May God rest their soul. I'm the baby of 7. And one of my siblings, 3 of my siblings, 2 of my siblings I don't even talk to. One of them was a ordained minister at the Crystal Cathedral in Southern California. He was the one I always looked up to, and wanted to be like as a little boy. I'm like, oh man, he's just so cool. and saw him, going through the ministry and becoming an ordained minister. And now he lives on the streets somewhere in Florida, because that little drug called crack cocaine got him a couple decades ago and has held on and has never let go. And it's really, really sad that you go from being an ordained minister at Crystal Cathedral to being on the street, strung out, and it's pretty sad. But that's life, and those are things that happen. So then there's two siblings I don't speak with at all because of misunderstandings and issues and so forth. It's really sad how people don't take the time to talk things out. I always tell people that the key to life is, are you listening to reply, or are you listening to understand? That's one of the things I tell people. So whenever you're having a conversation or disagreement, you want to listen to understand. Don't just listen to reply. And I think 95% of the people listen to reply, not to understand, and it's sad, and that causes a lot of grief in relationships and so forth. So anyway, long story short, my mom, which by the way, again, didn't know her at all, and for the last 9 years I've been taking care of her. I pay all her bills. I don't have a relationship with her, but I do make sure she's taken care of, and she lives comfortably and has a nice place and lives her life, and make sure she has nothing that she needs. And again, before before my other two brothers died, again, no one helped out, no one did anything. It fell on my burden, and all of them had a relationship with her because I was the baby, and so I never had a relationship with her. But it's just kind of sad how that works out. But anyway, so I had one of my siblings fly out from Florida a couple of days ago because my mom's 90th birthday was on Saturday. And I didn't know they had a 90th birthday party for her until I saw it on social media. And that kind of made me feel a sort of way. Now, yes, I don't really have a relationship with her because just because someone is your mom or gave birth to you doesn't mean you have to have a relationship. I have relationships with people that are healthy, that are mutual, and I have some issues that I've had from birth that has not been solved. And it can get solved. So sometimes some people are just not meant to be parents. So it is what it is. And yes, I've had, it's been probably a few decades since I went to therapy and talked about it. But I remember one of the things that my therapist said about 20, 30 years ago is to say the words out loud. I am angry with my mother. So it's funny how things work out and you say certain things, and it's just interesting how the world works. But me personally, I don't believe in that type of therapy situation unless you're mentally ill and there's physical or actual proof that you're having some kind of mental illness, then you can go that direction. But anyway, it is what it is. The jury is still out for me on that one. So anyway, so this party happened, and I saw my nephew was there, his mom was there, and a lot of the siblings from the nieces and nephews were there. So I messaged one of my nephews and says, "You're in California?" I'm kind of shocked. He goes, "Yeah, it was a surprise. I came out." Oh, well, that's kind of cool. Thanks for letting me know. And then about 20 minutes later, I got a text message from my sister saying, "Oh, I'm in town." "Oh yeah, I'm sure you're in town now because your son just called you and told you that I texted him." Anyway, it is what it is. And I said, "Oh, interesting." So bottom line is, I wasn't invited to the 90th birthday party because there's so much sibling drama, and that's fine. It is what it is. So I basically sent a text message out to the oldest part of the family at this point and says, "Hey, just to let you know," and this is me, because I have this little fault that I have in my life, that when I feel I'm being taken advantage of, or someone's pushing me or doing me wrong, I have this really, really, really bad habit of lashing out. And when I lash out hard. And the Queen always tells me, she goes, "Do you always have to go nuclear?" I'm like, "That's all I know." And I'm not proud of it, but it's something I try to work on. I try to think about it just like my little situation with the neighborhood and the homeless association, you know, breaking my TV. You guys kind of maybe heard a little bit about that. So I've been picketing and the whole bit, and they told me it would take 2 or 3 months to pay for my $10,000 TV. Well, it took me 4 days to get them to pay for it because I do go nuclear when someone does me wrong. So I text my sister and said, hey, just to let you know how I feel, because again, I'm gonna tell you how I feel about the situation with the party. And I also let you guys know that August, I paid all the mom's bills, and effective September 1st, all of you, including all the nieces and nephews and whatever, you guys can all find $50, $75, $100 a month, whatever you can find, and you guys all pool it, because effective September 1st, you guys are going to be responsible for paying all our bills, because I've been doing it for the last 8 years, going on 9 years, and I'm done. I'm not doing it anymore. So of course the reply comes back that, well, you know, none of us can afford that. Oh, of course not. But you can afford to fly, you can afford to live your life, you can afford to go out to dinner. But when it comes down to it, we'll just always leave it on Clayton, because he's always the one that will make sure everything is paid for, everything is fine. Same thing they did with my dad. May God rest his soul. And did the same thing with him. I bought him a house. No one ever helped. No one ever paid. No one ever called. Nobody ever offered. There were times that, look, I'm an entrepreneur. Sometimes life's great and sometimes finances are not great. But I still had to live up to my obligations. So, of course, I lashed out and says, September 1, I'm not paying for anything. So if she ends up on the street, she ends up on the street. If she ends up living with one of you guys, she ends up living with one of you guys. So, of course, the response comes back with, well, none of us have any money. We can't do anything. So whatever's going to happen to her is going to happen to her. So, of course, I can't make that happen. So I denounced my my membership in the family, or the so-called family that we supposedly have, and said, you know what? You guys can just consider me dead. Consider me not part of the relationship or this family. And it's kind of sad that you have to go there. Is that probably the right thing to say or do? Probably not. But it gives me comfort, because I don't have to sit there and feel like I'm being taken advantage of. So I told her, no problem. Don't worry about it. I'll continue taking care of mom until her last day, or until my last day. And when that day comes, you guys can take over from there, because I'm not involved. But it's really interesting. All that experience has made me understand and realize that, again, blood is not the key to the family situation. It just isn't. It's not the key to it. It's not. It's how people treat you. It's how people respect you. It's how you go through a relationship. And I think about the dysfunction that the family had from the beginning. My dad trying to raise 7 children on his own. I remember my brothers and sisters coming up to the United States way before me. I never really saw that much of a family unit, because there wasn't a family unit. There was no mom and dad sitting at the table, us having lunch and dinners and so forth. I remember the housekeeper, you know, making dinner for us and taking care of me, and as I grew up, and that's all I really knew. And that family unit is so important, because if you don't have that and you don't see that, then when you grow up to be an adult, then you have some of those same traits and you pass them on. So it's interesting. And I'm not saying this to make an excuse or whatever, but again, humans do what we see, what we're part of, what we witness. And what I witnessed was a man and my dad that had 7 children, that worked his butt off to make sure we had everything we wanted. Didn't have a lot of time with him, but he sure worked a lot. I think the first time I heard my dad say he loved me was about, I think I was in my 30s. Yeah, late 30s. So it never had that understanding or that unit. It was just really, really tough, because it didn't have that close bond family situation. And yes, I blame that on my mom, because no matter what the situation, you don't walk away from 7 children, especially one being a baby. I think I was 8 months old when she left. And my agreement with her 9 years ago, when she moved from Trinidad and Tobago back to the United States because she wasn't doing well back there, I says, look, I will take care of you until your last day. I will make sure your situation under 2 circumstances. Rule number 1, I don't want to hear anything about my dad, because he's not here to defend himself. So I don't want to hear it. Rule number 2, don't expect a relationship. However, I will make sure that you have a very nice place and all your needs are met. So those were my terms. So she accepted the terms, and yes, we never moved to a relationship. So it's interesting because as I look back on the mistakes I've made in my life and the situations I've had with my children, I think back to how much I repeated some of that behavior that I learned. And you learn things by witnessing it. So I witnessed the relationship that my dad had with us, and that relationship and the way he showed his love, which is what I thought and I understood, which I know differently today. And I'll tell you something pretty private here in a minute, but I witnessed love by him. I'm kind of walking in circles because this is where my signal is best. I noticed his love for us by providing. It's kind of funny. Back in let's see, I was born in 1964. So around early 70s, I was playing remote control cars, and they were like the best thing in the world. And we had a pretty big house, and we had a chauffeur and a housekeeper and all that stuff because he had to have it. He had 7 children. He needed help. And I'll always get that remote control car for my birthday and for Christmas. It was really, really cool because my dad was just a provider. Didn't show much as far as sitting down for dinners. Didn't tell me he loved me, but he sure worked his butt off. So of course, as I grew up and I started having a family at a very young age because I had my first child in my very, very early 20s. And all I did was work. That's what I did. So the repeated behavior, here we go, the repeated behavior that you see. So I provided, I worked. Unfortunately, that didn't work for a healthy relationship, and got divorced when the kids were in the 9-10 year range. And of course, I was the bad guy because I was not the one building a relationship. And my ex-wife at the time, or my wife at the time, she was the one building a relationship because I was out working. I was out making sure we lived in the home, and we had the white picket fence and the 2.5 cars and the normal thing that you feel a success. And of course, that's all I knew. And it's interesting how in life that you learn things again from what you see or how you're raised, and that just carries on from generation to generation. So it's so important to sit and learn that. And this is my biggest takeaway from it. So because of that situation, because of the divorce, I was blamed for the divorce by my kids. And, they took years and years and years to even formulate another relationship because they hated the fact that I divorced your mom and I was the bad guy and I was the horrible guy and I was the mean guy and I was, never spent time with them and I never did all these things. And they were so untrue. But in the last few years, I've rekindled a really great relationship with my son. And still working on my daughter. Hopefully she'll come around. She responds every so often. But my son has 2 boys now of his own. And we've had some pretty extensive conversations and hurtful conversations. In fact, the last time the Queen and I went out to dinner with his boys and his wife, he says, Dad, I said some pretty bad things to you a couple of years ago, and I still apologize for it or whatever. And I understand he was hurt, so I didn't take it personally. I mean, it is what it is. And he just said some pretty hurtful things, and they shook me and they hurt me to my core. But again, that's my son, and I know that I created a lot of those hurt feelings because it's passed on from generation to generation. But it's interesting, in that conversation, he said, and by the way, I was never supposed to ever see my grandchildren, by the way, because there was so much hurt and anger. And my queen was such a pivotal part of making that happen. She said, I'll continue praying for it. And she had some conversations with my son. And I had some conversations with them. It took a couple of years for him to trust the situation, but it ended up working out anyway. So we're still mending and we're still working, and there's still hurt in the relationship. But something he said to me just absolutely is the catalyst of this life. And this is the point I'm trying to make. He said to me a couple weeks ago, he says, you were so much more, you're so much better as a granddad as you were as a dad. And man, talk about sticking a knife in you and twisting it about 35 million times. That's how that felt. And I was quiet because normally I would go off and make my comments, but again, I'm listening to understand, not to reply. So I learned that later on in my life. And he said, I watched you with Lincoln, which is the oldest, when we were at Lisa's dad's house. And he said, you were outside with him. And I watched you for a good 20, 30 minutes. I just kept, every few minutes I'll look up. And I saw you with him. And I saw how attentive you were. And I saw that you never picked up your phone. And I saw you were never distracted. And I saw that you gave him your full attention. And you were explaining every little thing to you. In fact, my brother-in-law captured a picture that I have that the Queen framed and has up in the house that I thought was pretty cool. But he captured that experience. And it made me realize, well, if I had the years of knowledge that I have now, I could have been that way in my 20s or my 30s, but I just didn't know. All I knew is what my dad gave me, and it's to go out, make sure your family's taken care of, even after the divorce. I mean, we're talking, in the 1990s, early 90s, I was paying, $11,000 a month for child support. No, I'm sorry, $8,700 a month for child support and alimony. That's a large amount of money in the early 90s. But I worked my butt off. I'd make sure that they were taken care of. Was never a deadbeat dad. Never missed a payment. Never missed one payment. There were times that I didn't eat. There were times I had to call my mortgage company and ask them for extensions so I can make sure that payment was made. Because that was my understanding of what loving children is like. That was what I was taught. That's what I learned. And that's all I knew. So, oops, give me a second. So that's all I knew. But there was so much more to it. Sorry, you guys. I kind of just stepped on something. There's so much more to it now that I know what I know. And I'm able to spread that love through my grandchildren and learn so much more, that I just wish us as humans had that class, had that understanding. And for those of you that have that secure family relationship where you have a mom or dad together still, like my Queen does, her mom and dad's been together from day one, have the same parents still together, her family unit is about as strong as they come. Never seen a family that close. I have friends that parents are still together. I'm not saying just because you're a single mom or a single dad, you don't have that strength, but I'll tell you what, it does help if you're still with that person that you had kids with, and it is a healthy relationship. Even in a healthy relationship, because I look at differences between my Queen's siblings, and even in a healthy relationship, there's forces outside, which is called society, that changes things so much and changes how you act and you react and so forth. So it's just really, really tough. I mean, like, life is such an adventure that we go through these processes and we sit and we try to learn, and we try to do the best we can as parents. And there's nothing I can do. Like I've told people so many times, let's see, what time is it right now? 12:27. There's nothing I can do about 12:26. There's a whole lot I can do about 12:28. And nothing I can go back to do to change my relationship with my children or change my relationship with my mom or my siblings or whatever. Sometimes you just have to put yourself in a position, look, if you try and it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And I am one that I will give it a shot a few times, and if you're not going to meet me halfway or meet me at all, then it ends. I mean, it's really sad that my sister, her and I were pretty close, not the one that just came into town, but my other sister that had a tragic surgery and ended up being in a wheelchair for the rest of her life. I remember she just lost her husband a couple months ago, but I remember her husband and her coming to my house about, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, and me sitting them down and saying, I know you have 4 girls and you're trying to put yourself in a position financially, and I know you guys are struggling, but let me kind of put you in the right direction. And she was able to get not sizable. It was, I mean, compared to what she's gone through, a pretty okay settlement. I don't think it was big enough. It was a few $100,000 from the doctors messing her up. But I showed them what to do, and they ended up buying a whole bunch of properties and ended up buying a nice home and living a pretty decent life before his passing a few months ago. And I did that for my other sister also. There was a certain loan that I put them on, and so anyway, so it's interesting. You have those relationships and you think you're doing the right thing, and then things happen. Our oldest died a few years ago, and I, started doing some contacting and checking on his employment, and of course I was taking care of the funeral and everything else, and I found that that there was a life insurance policy. There were several, and he left some money for a few of the family members. His son in Trinidad, he left a little something for my mom, and my sister that I'm talking about, he left her a pretty sizable amount. Not six figures, but medium to low six figures. And I called her, I says, hey, just to let you know, I found something. I found an insurance policy that you have, and just want to let you know. And she was like, no way. I'm like, yep, he left it for you. So I assumed, which is a tough word to look at sometimes, because assumption, you phonetically spell it out, and makes an ass out of you and me. So I assumed that she would participate in the funeral, because usually if someone leaves you something, that's for their final resting place and so forth. And this was going on somewhere around COVID also. And we had the funeral, paid for the funeral, got it all set, and she says, well, let me help. And she sent me $500. And I was extremely insulted, and that created a massive issue with the family. And since that day, I haven't spoken to her. And I called her and says, look, I'm not gonna let money get involved in our situation. Of course, one of her daughters heard she was upset and called me and pretty much cussed me out until I explained my side of the story. And then after her cussing me out for about a half hour, she said, I just feel like flying over there right now and giving you a hug. But it's interesting how there's always two sides to a situation. So I told her, I says, look, let's just leave it alone. And she says, no, I'll never talk to you again, period. Whatever reasons, that's her reasons, so that's where it stands. So it's interesting how blood turns on you and situations happen, but all you can do is move on with your life and do the best you can. And I feel like I have a second chance of not following the patterns that I've learned when I was a little boy, and watching a unit of family without a mom and a dad that literally works all the time and never get to see him, and don't hear I love you, and don't hear the traditional family things. But he sure provided. That's one thing he did. Never needed for anything. And that's what I thought dad was supposed to do and what family is about, so I followed in those footsteps. But now that I'm older and I'm seeing, I thank God every day that I have a second chance to put that love through my grandchildren, and I adore them. And it's interesting, I never really knew my son was watching me while I was with him, because of course he doesn't want that same scenario that was done to him, in his opinion, to go through his children. And it's funny, his wife, wonderful woman, really didn't have much of a relationship with her either, because she heard all the stories. And again, you have to remember, someone judges you through the eyes of someone else, and that happens very often in our community, happens very often in our lives. So whatever my son felt about me, obviously she's reading into it, because that's all she knows. She doesn't know me personally, she doesn't talk to me personally, but for some weird reason, in the last few months, she's done a 180. I'll give you a little example which just warmed my heart. We're having our family reunion, our Sunday meetup this month, and I text them because they just came back from Italy, and I says, hey, just let you guys know the family you get together is the 27th. And my son replied, it was in a group text, my son replied, oh man, that's the day that his wife is traveling and she's flying back that day. And she's a school teacher, which is so interesting because both professions my son and my daughter-in-law is at is something I respect heavily because I don't think they're taken care of enough. Police officers and teachers, I just think they're just so underpaid, and they protect the community. And teachers, basically what I'm talking about. I mean, besides your parents, look, you spend more time with as much time or close to more time with your teachers, so they kind of curb the world, and I think they're so underpaid. But she replied on the text chain, no, you can take the boys. When I land, I'll meet you guys there. And that just warmed my heart, because I was looking at what it used to be years ago to where it is today. So it's certain that any situation that you're in can be changed, and any relationship you have can be changed, but it takes two people willing. It takes both parties willing to make that change. And I would say I'm fortunate enough that after some long talking and some long years, my son was able to want to make that relationship, and we're trying to get my daughter there, and hopefully she does. Keeping hope alive and hoping. And on the other side of it, no, I'm not willing to make that relationship with my mom. So it does take two willing parties. So I'm the one, because she is trying. She has tried, and she wants to try to make that relationship, but I just can't get past the hurt and the feelings I have inside of me. I will basically say it's my fault. It is what it is. I don't know. Again, a lot of people say therapy will help, things like that. I don't believe in that. So I just honestly don't. And this is going to be a really, really harsh thing to say, but it is what it is. I don't like the person she is. I just don't. I've tried to get to know her, and I don't like what I see. And just because you gave birth to me doesn't mean that you and I have to have a relationship. However, I'll put you in a very nice apartment. I'll pay all your bills. I'll make sure you're taken care of. Because again, remember early in the story, that's what I learned from a very, very young age, what love is, to make sure someone's taken care of, because that's what my dad taught me. Right, wrong, or indifferent, that's what I know. That what's been ingrained in me. But it's really interesting that the rest of the family won't step up to the plate and say, hey, are you okay with mom's rent this month? Can I send you $50? Can I send you $10? Can I do something? But nobody cares. So it is what it is. So life just goes on, and we get older every day. Look, I am probably 20 minutes, 25 minutes, 30 minutes older than I was before I started this conversation. So that's what happens. We just get older. We learn from the things that is around us. We do the best we can every day. But if I had to give everyone advice, and sometimes I try to take that advice for myself, is watch the relationships that you have around your children, because they're going to take that knowledge and they're going to watch everything you do and take what you do and what they learned, and it's going to go on in their relationships, and it's going to go from generation to generation to generation to generation. And we as adults and as parents, we need to give our children the best opportunity that they have to be successful and have a successful relationship and bring the next relationship up. And it's just tough. I mean, it's been a tough few days for me. It's been tough denouncing myself from the family this morning. I just said, look, there's no relationship there anyway. I mean, all I am to many people in this world is a dollar sign or a bank. Many people view me as that. I don't get that much anymore, because I think most of the people already know my situation is I don't loan money and I don't borrow money. So that's just my rule. So don't even call and ask me, because you don't get the same answer. But it's just sad that our relationships have to go that way. And what you learn from a child carries you for the rest of your life. So it's just so important for you to understand that how you are to your children, how you are to who you're raising, is what matters. And that's all you can do. And if you are already past that situation and you're blessed enough to have grandchildren, then God blessed you with a second chance. And I do have that second chance. And I am watching that second chance, and I'm embracing that second chance. As I watch my 3 grandchildren, I only have a relationship with 2 of them right now. The third one I've met, and we'll see if that comes. The fourth one's on the way from that side also. So all I can do is continue. And I think normally what I do is I push things heavily because I'm one of those people that I don't accept just sitting back and waiting. I'm not a waiter. Look, my wife says I'm the most impatient, patient person she knows. I have to fix everything because I'm a fixer. That's what I saw my dad do. He fixed situations, and that's all I knew. And it was interesting because I wanted to fix that relationship with my children so bad, and I tried so bad, and I pushed, and finally God spoke to me, and he's like, just relax. I had like 2 or 3 meetings with my son, and they were brutal. A lot of brutal things said, a lot of hurt things said, and I think that's him protecting himself from his feelings, and he expected me to blow up and get angry and do the things I normally did, and I just sat there and I took it. And I made a commitment that I'm going to check on the kids and the grandkids and their spouses once a week, every week, and that's what I've done. Like every Friday, group text, hey, how's everyone doing? Hope you guys had a great week. Whether or not I get a return text or not, doesn't matter. I'm just very, very consistent, and I don't push for anything. And then all of a sudden, his wife pops up, and she became the catalyst of making sure that we're in the kids' lives, and can't wait to see them on the 27th. I'll probably see them a little bit before they also go out to dinner again or whatever, but it's just so interesting. It's so interesting how we wake up. I mean, I think about waking up this morning and look, my 59th birthday is coming. There's not a whole bunch of years left, and you sit and you think about the things that you wish you knew back then, and all I can do in today's days is just continue inspiring. If I inspire you, continue speaking real, straight from the heart, and hopefully I can touch one person. Hopefully I can touch dozens of people or hundreds of people. I know every Saturday we have about 100 to 125 people on our call, and I am hoping I'm making a difference in your lives. I truly do, by my experiences, so you don't have to go through some of the pains I went through. But that's all we can do. So now I have a cause. I have a great relationship with my 2 grandchildren, hopefully 3 soon, hopefully 4 soon. And I just keep moving on, keep watching life and realizing that we can make the change. But again, I can't force anyone to change. I can't make anyone be in a situation. All I can do is be here, be open, and whatever happens, happens. So I know this was a long wisdom walk. I hope, again, it touches someone. I hope it helps someone that may be going through something in their life. Again, blood is not always thicker than water. And so many of you have enriched my life in so many ways. I can't say you've made me happy, because you can't make me happy. Only I can make myself happy. But you have enriched my life. I've met some amazing people that I've never even met in person. And I consider you family, and I consider you so close to me, and you mean so much to me. I so look forward to our Saturday meetings. Yes, I know sometimes I'm a little bit tough and straight to the point, but that's all I know how to be. And but just hearing the comments and hearing and seeing the growth of many of you on social media and hearing you on Saturday calls just absolutely warms my heart. And I hope that can be translated through your relationships, through your children, through their children. I mean, we have kids now watching us on Saturday mornings, and full families doing it together, and that's just so important to me. And it really, really fulfills my life legacy and fulfills where I want to be in life. So I thank you guys so much for that. But anyway, so appreciate you guys all. Love you all. I hope you have a great day. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.